Welcome back, everybody. On here. On here.
So, did you give her the certificate?
They already have.
You already have that. Get her. Oh, it's either or. इतना तो लिख कर लीजिए. इनकी किताब के अंदर get some. Then ये जा रही. हाँ. So, okay.
So I have been working with the moderator because I have no idea why I have never moderated anything in my life. Moderation and we are not sure.
I enjoyed.
Thank you so much. Very, very generous.
Welcome back, everybody. We'll be beginning with our next panel, which is on media and gender, how are Muslim women represented. We have two panelists here with us, and the rest of them are joining. So I would like Shamma WADHWA to begin with her initial thoughts.
This is an impossible task. I don't have a panel.
I just wanted to introduce Shamma WADHWA, who's moderating and chairing this session. Shamma is the kind of person that we wanted several of in this conference, because Shamma brings together a very strong sense of what the development sector means. EHTESHAM, she's been a development journalist of very high repute, writing in some of the finest mainstream papers for several years. Then moved very seamlessly into academics. She is a very senior researcher at the India Development Foundation, where she works, among other issues, on gender. And she's also fraternity, because she teaches at the School for Modern Media in Dehradun at the University of Petroleum and Energy, and has been doing this this combination of academics, writing, popular writing, and reporting on gender for the last 2.5 decades at least. So she's seen this whole transformation that we have seen in India post the reforms, has an acute interest, and has written on the Muslim issue also, on the Muslim gender issue. So that's why it is very fortunate we had Shamma here with us today, and she's using all those hats to moderate this session, which has some of our best people. My very dear friend EHTESHAM, who just joined us, heads the Media and Journalism School at MANUU, and of course Ghazala, who's my favorite celebrity these days. Yeah. Thank you. Shamma, over to you.
हमको माइक चाहिए कुछ तो चाहिए नहीं चाहिए Can you hear me? Yeah. So this is the easiest task, to be moderating a panel of journalists. They are all articulate, they have opinions, and you need to do very little. So I think I'll begin by asking you what you think of the topic, media and gender, how are Muslim women represented? Initial thoughts. Why don't you start? And then maybe... yeah, sorry.
Passing the pastor here.
Yes.
Actually, the answer to this is a stereotype by itself. There are two kinds of representation which we see in the media, popular media of Muslim women. One, and they both are accurate to a certain extent in a limited way. One is of the burqa clad, the head to toe covered woman who is shown to be oppressed by the males of her own fraternity, and who needs help and outside help to find her voice, to find, assert her rights. Or maybe she's incapable of asserting her rights, so she has to be helped by others in providing those rights to her. This is a stereotype to a certain extent, but it is also true. The other portrayal is then of very modern Muslim woman, which is also only partly true because it's not representative of all Muslim women, who is not bound by religion, who's probably a-religious, who espouses views which are contrary to her religion, who's critical of her religion because she has fought her way or clawed her way out of the religious structures which were constraining her. And I think both these versions are only partly true. Like everybody else, like all women, irrespective of irrespective of religion, there is diversity among Muslim women. There are really oppressed, suppressed Muslim women who need a lot of help and support. There are moderate Muslim women trying to make a living, trying to balance home, workplace with aspirations which are as normal as anybody who is not a Muslim, planning to go on a holiday, kowtowing to the mother-in-law, pandering to father-in-law's whims, ensuring that the husband's ego is not hurt, meeting deadlines in the office, getting stressed about children's education. So that's also true. There are a lot of Muslim women like that. And this is the version which doesn't find resonance in the public portrayal that we see. Maybe because it is so normal that we look at it and we ignore it, because it doesn't strike as something deserving of attention. And I feel this is the version which needs attention, which needs a lot of hand holding to ensure that this version or this community of women, they do not relapse into the structures which they have broken out of, the shackles which they've broken out of. So I feel this is initial my early thoughts.
So Fatima, we just started by sort of. I just like to 1 minute. So I thought since it's media and everybody's so articulate, we'll just talk about the topic maybe to begin with.
Right.
And just to add to what you said, आपको हम लोग टाइम देंगे, आपका टाइम भी आएगा. I get actually Fatima in the morning, I think you weren't there, a lot of us heard her, and she spoke about this, that it's always about being victim, and then it's about being victimized by the men of the community. So that's the difference in the trope. I mean, otherwise it's pretty much, because I was thinking, how is this any different from women? You take away the Muslim and what is the difference? But sort of it's interesting. I teach a course that I have conceived of as a researcher and a journalist, and it's called Reporting the Other India.
Right.
So I teach concepts like agency, advocacy, and things. But so as the midterm evaluation this time, I had given them Muskan Bibi, the poster girl for the hijab controversy, and I said that, look, she's been othered. Right. She is completely othered, because there are people who are saying that, she's an agent, a bikini pehenti actual life mein. There were pictures of her, morphed pictures of her, but now she's pretending to be this. She egged these people on. Shah Rukh Khan has given her a prize. So all of those things making her a certain stereotype. And so I asked the students to do an assignment for me, group work, another her, profile her and another her. It's very interesting. I've done the same thing with Mandaviya. I remember the health minister of BJP who was trolled for
Right.
not speaking. So it was
Yeah,
interesting
yeah.
for me to, it was. And here it went to the other extreme. It was bleeding heart. With Muskan, it was like the students did the other thing. They went the activist route. Again, that thing, that balance that you're talking about between complete victim or completely ISI agent, there seems to be no. Is it possible to attain that balance? Does it merit a story when it is not either this or that?
Hello, I don't think this is working, so I think I'll need. I mean, it does definitely. As I mentioned in passing when I was giving my talk earlier, so I spent a considerable amount of time with these girls. Right, I went to Karnataka and I insisted that this is something that merits a documentary. It is life changing. It is. I find myself hard pressed to describe what these girls are going through. And I think in no shape, way, or form can we or should we ever undermine the trauma that they are witnessing. That no one should have to go through. I shouldn't have to sit here and tell you why I'm wearing the clothes I'm wearing. And it is true that it was only a certain type of women, a certain kind of women wearing a certain type of clothing who are expected to answer these questions and who are subjected to the scrutiny, both from outside the community, but even within the community. The liberals, the progressives within the community think it's okay to put her on that chair and ask her to explain her life choices and why she's wearing something that she is, when it has absolutely nothing to do with them. And that infuriated me. That patronizing, condescending tone infuriated me. And even when I went and saw the documentary, and it's on the edit table right now, inshallah it should be out soon. My intention throughout was, sure, okay, I have to, I spoke to the ABVP, I spoke to the CFI, I questioned them, the politics, all of that. But my aim was, and I was very clear on that, that because I've grown up in the Muslim community, I have people around me who wear the hijab. My mother chose to wear the hijab like in her 50s, and she's a doctor, she's an MD medicine. Absolutely no force from anyone, but of course, because I have grown up seeing that kind of a woman who chooses to wear the hijab, I understand how easy it is to fall into the trap of anecdotal fallacy. I understand that because this is my personal experience, this will not be the experience of everyone. There are thousands of hijabi girls in Karnataka fighting for their right to access the classroom. Of course, no one can say that all thousands of them, 100% of them are wearing that by choice, or that there is no tutoring, or that there is no coercion, etc., etc. But the point is, and that was my argument, that needs to be besides the point. These are complex human beings. And in the documentary, so for instance, Almas, who's the lead petitioner, she's also a karate champion. So when I met her, she did the karate for me, like in her burqa. Alia is an excellent wildlife photographer. She's like, I love spending time with snakes and photographing them. And no one will tell you that. No one will tell you that because we don't like seeing hijabi women, Muslim women, but particularly visibly Muslim women, as complex four-dimensional human beings who have desires and choices and outside of their hijabness. And I'm saying even the liberals fall for this.
Did you see any presentation of these girls as real girls, however you want to present it, before what you've done? Have you seen it at all in the media?
I think they won't ever ask. When I asked them these questions, I didn't see them. And they said this is the first time someone's asking us these questions. What are your hobbies? Something as basic as that. I just asked Hiba, who was harassed by a bunch of ABVP men outside her college, and then she had an FIR registered against her. She wants to be an IPS officer, and she's been preparing for it for 5. She's just 19, and she's been preparing for it since she was 12.
So let me just ask, open this to the panel. What is it that is keeping us from doing this kind of reportage? Because all said and done, it's not that the media is completely bereft of sensitive or right-thinking people, or just competent journalists. Let's just call this competent journalism. Let's not call it anything else. This is how it should be. What is it that is keeping us from doing this? It surely can't be our case that there is no one at all in Indian journalism who wants to tell these stories. I mean, you are a younger member of the tribe, and even you. So surely there are many more. There. So is it an individual thing? Is it the system thing? Is it that these stories don't sell? Because if we know the problem, then we can address it, right? Because it has to be more than one person's tirade or one person's fight or one person's campaign. This is journalism. This is profession.
Right.
This is a profession. So how do we make it more than just activism? How do we make it about, this is how it should be done. This is a skill. And why isn't it being done? Because there are all of us here.
Thank you. Actually, the problem of this stereotyping and gender inequality lies with the mainstream media, what we are seeing today. And one of the data which I wanted to share with United Nations organization, which was published in 2019. If we see the data, it is very amazing that the whole mainstream media covers 7.5% of gender issues in India. What are the issues? Rest of the other issues, only 7.5% they are covering gender issues. And if we see the main leading newspapers like Amar Ujala, Dainik Jagran, Hindustan, Navbharat Times, Prabhat Khabar, then Punjab Kesari, Rajasthan Patrika, all are leading newspapers. And during October 2018 and to March 2019, they have covered 2084 articles, writers, and 17% are only women specific. See the ratio, if you see, then it shows not only the Muslim issues but as well as other main issues. Yeah, and this out of 600, out of this is the ratio of out of 6,608 articles, and only 17% are women based, and 10% women are contributed out of this 6,806 articles. And if we see the representation of female as a panelist on all English newspapers like NDTV, India Today, Times Now, Republic, Mirror, then the panelists, like there are 1,967 shows, and 1,906 individuals has been invited as a panelist, and only women panelists constitute 15.7%. If we see the 1 year's data, then only the panelists constitute 15.7%. Then there is no equality in terms of when it comes to women empowerment or equality. And most of these news channels, English news channels, has covered 7.5% gender issues. In comparison to Hindi, it is English news channels are less. And India Today, which has major contribution, they have 71% as women panelists, in comparison to NDTV, which constitutes 64%. Then still most of the other news English channels are lagging behind. And most of the cases we have seen that female journalists, anchors are leading in these news channels, because the number of female journalists is 24 out of 20 men journalists. Then here there is a good picture in terms of hosting the show and program wise, but the number of panelists is very less. And if we there are so many if we see the digital media platform, then there is the report is saying that 1,124 articles are published, but here the number of articles by women journalists is 40%. That constitute 445 bylines stories in digital media, particularly First Post, News Laundry, Satyagraha, the News Minute, Quint, Wire, and Scroll-In. Then the digital media has given a much more advantage to the female, where they can write their stories by line. Then, because the main
Why do you think that?
Because it has given independent space. So the thing, the women are getting equal opportunities.
Yeah, can I come
Yeah.
back to you?
Yeah.
Arfa, you've joined us late, but as you heard, the data clearly says that women are not only underrepresented when it comes to actually in the media, they're also not working enough. I mean, there are not enough women in them. But digital media seems to be making it a little better for women, since you are with the wire. Um, is there any particular reason why there is more representation of women in the digital media? I mean,
I feel because in general, digital media is more democratic, more liberal, and that is why you see more inclusivity. Like I will give you an example of The Wire and how it is structured. We are barely 35, 40 people. Our bureau chief is a woman, not just a woman, she comes from the northeastern part of India. Our audience director is a woman. That too, she's come from a religious minority. I'm adding this just to say that when we say women, it should not just be upper caste Hindu women. So, and then third, there is yet another woman who heads our desk. I head the Wire's multimedia department. So I would say out of, let's say, 6 people, 6 head of the departments, 4 are women. Just to add to that, even News Minute, they have their editor-in-chief as woman. So I think in general, digital media is more democratic, more refined. It comes with better ideas. And that is why you find not just more issues related to people from the marginalized communities, but more acceptance of people from the marginalized communities in the newsroom. Because remember, this is where it starts.
Yeah. Is it then our case, I'm just thinking aloud, is it then our case that we need to have more women to have more women's issues? We need to have more Muslim women to write more about it? Shouldn't be, should it?
I would say representation matters.
Yes, it does.
My experience of working in newsrooms for the past 20 plus years, I mean, I would argue that it shouldn't be the case, but I do feel wherever you're coming from, you bring that body of experience with you and also the perspectives.
Yes.
Like I am a small town girl. I am from Uttar Pradesh. So my point of view is of a woman from a small town. Maybe my point of view will be very different from somebody who was raised in, let's say, Mumbai or Calcutta, in cosmopolitan big cities. So there is still a small town girl, and I do understand the problems that they face.
So let me play the devil's advocate. Devil is a man. So what if I put to you that therefore a book like hers is a personal experience, it's authorship. But when it comes to something like journalism, it has to be professional. It should be person, caste, religion, gender agnostic to a certain extent. Its delivery should not be dependent on who is delivering it. Just like Pepsi, Coke, McDonald's, wherever it is, there is a certain standard that you expect. Can we do something as media professional to ensure that? Yeah, please.
You know, when I was doing the course in journalism, in the class of 20 people, I was the second girl. I mean, there were just 2 girls in the class, and it was a small class. It was assumed by my professors that I would focus on women issues because I was a woman.
Yes.
And because it was assumed, and the final year we were to present a paper, a research paper. So it was assumed I would write something on women. And just because it was assumed, I decided not to do that. And I did something, there was this some financial scandal going on in Japan at that point. I'm forgetting what it was, so many years ago, and the government had fallen. So I decided to do the research on corruption and high places in politics, because I wanted to show that a woman should not be doing women's issues alone.
Yeah.
So as a result, in the final year, the only one woman took up a woman's issue as a research paper, and all 19 papers were on non-women issues. So no man decided to take on anything which had to do with women. When I joined the newspaper, it was assumed that a woman should be relegated to soft subjects.
Yes. Yes.
Whether it's feature writing
Yes.
or women's issue, healthcare, fashion. I did all of that in my early years. And because I had no choice, I mean, I was doing what I was asked to do. But because this stereotyping of certain issues had been made with a certain kind of gender of the reporter, I was determined not to do that.
Yes.
As a result, I feel instead of more men doing or talking about women issues or issues which are of importance to women, fewer women are doing issues which talk of women because on rebound. So that is why I think the statistics speak for themselves. The other thing I want to make a small point, taking from what ARFA was saying, it is true that digital media is more democratic, but it is also true that digital media it has mass appeal. People are watching it on their private systems, their iPads or their tablets or television, wherever. But the mass media is still the media which gets the maximum advertising from the corporate sector. And that media, unless the change happens there, we can do anything in the digital media. News Minute is a very, very brave venture. I mean, Dhanya is an amazing person to do this. But she doesn't have advertising. How long can it sustain? Ultimately, our entire media, we are changing Wire, Scroll. They are changing the model. They're asking News Laundry. They're asking the readers or the viewers to pay for the news they want to see.
Crowdsourcing.
But it's still just the tip. It's just the froth on the sea. This is not the real media, which is actually reaching out everywhere at every corner.
It's almost like farming, isn't it, Ghazala? I mean, women do all the work, but wherever money comes in, machines come in, it's the men.
It's a man.
The market-facing activities are always the men, no? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think ownership issues will always be there, as Ghazala said. But interesting that you said that if a woman is reporting on women's issues, then there will be lack of objectivity.
No.
I mean, it's perceived. It's perceived, you said. That why should people be telling their personal stories? It has to be objective. You have to distance yourself from the subject that you are covering, right? All these things we were taught in the journalism class. I think with the change in politics and society, the definition of journalism also has to change. Every day when I'm attacked on social media, it is, of course, for my work, but this is also for my identity as a Muslim woman. I would say 90% of the abuses and attacks that come my way, 95 maybe, they come because I'm an outspoken, vocal Muslim woman who's unapologetic about her identity. So am I supposed to be speaking from a place which is just 5% of that whole identity of a journalist who's supposed to be professional, distancing herself from the subject that she's covering? Trust me, in 2022, I am the story and I'm also the storyteller.
Yes.
And I'm not saying this with a smile on my face. This is what it's
a huge
comes down to
burden.
me.
It's a huge burden.
Right.
Yes.
It is a burden on me.
Yes.
That all the time I have to really, and remember the principles of journalism, not that I will forget them and become an activist. So that is why I would say the lines of being journalist and activist, they are also getting blurred. What is professional, what is personal, that is getting blurred. Because why I'm attacked, why my work is attacked, even right now, I'm not going to name it. There are two police handles which are saying that we are taking action against one of your whatever tweets, whatever. So that's not because they are attacking my work. What I tweeted was tweeted by maybe 100 other people, but they chose me because they want to set an example because of my religious identity. So what I'm trying to say is that 20 years ago, what I was taught in my journalism class and what I am doing as a practicing journalist today in today's India are two different things. So if I am being attacked for being who I am, I will sometimes, if not every time, will come back and react as who I am and who I'm attacked as.
It's much more vicious. Today's
It's personal. It's personal. All the time it's personal. I just
very
wish
vicious.
sometimes they forget who I am and really talk about the issues that I'm going to talk about. Like I did not join journalism to talk about how many people are being attacked every day, lynched every day, dying every day. I thought I will be talking about public health, universal education, universal health, women's rights, gender equality, environment issues, social justice, constitutionalism. I thought I will be discussing all of this. I did not think that I will be wasting my, these precious golden years in just every day, just sitting in front of the camera and just repeating myself.
I think it'll be unfair if I don't ask the next question to all of you, and then how do you prepare your students for something like this? And then I want,
I think Dr. Arfa, my colleague, has said the good thing that why female are even fearing to go in this media field, because most of the girls who are coming in the department, they are having very fear from that their family are not eager to send their girls for jobs. And then if this happens to Dr. Arfa, then you can imagine that what type of fear our new girls who are coming from very backward regions and very first generation, you can say, then they have a lot of stigma to choose their profession as a journalism as their career. But still, our department has launched this course in 2004, and what we have seen gradually that still there are no girls, except one or two.
Really?
But now the things are changing. We have good numbers after 2010, and there are, you can say, 20 to 25% are female students in the department.
Placement like?
Placement is good, but the only problem is this, that most of the news channels are asking girls to get the anchorship, not giving any reporting or real journalism. And in print, they are also working that. But the fact is this: the most of the news channels only asking for news anchors who can be their face value for their TV channels and media houses. But still, most of the girls who are coming, because the digital media has provided a good platform, so slowly they are going to different channels, also different digital platforms. But if I just wanted to share, there are two Urdu channels which is popular among the masses. One is News 18 Urdu and second one is Zee Salam. And there are other few channels like Sahara, Zee, Munsif and Doordarshan. But News 18 Urdu, if you see the figure, there are hardly female journalists. Only 6 are there out of 85. If you see the total desk, people working behind the camera and in the ground, only 6 female journalists are there. And then in Zee Salam, only 3 are working as anchors, and out of 50 staff. And the same thing, if you go by other channels, it is not more than that. So the problem is this, that this women issues and how to solve the representation of portrayal of Muslim issues in a proper way. We at the department wanted to break that ice to get too many of our students in the media, so they can at least say what the community senses and what are their feelings. Because most of the time media houses, what they are lying, they are focusing on crime and then controversy and crisis actual than based on facts and that journalistic integrity and objectivity. They are not focusing. But if we send good number of students, female students in this noble field, I think the perception and the situation might be changed. because these girls, if we go there and put what the community thinks and what is their views, what the community have the mindset, then I think the real pictures emerge. Because most of the time what we see in the, like any case, now all the cases related to minorities, if you see the hijab, then talaq or any issue, it is only that they are just trivializing the things and raising the issue unnecessary. And most of the panelists which are being called as on TV debates, even male or female, they are not true representatives of the minority community. And the problem lies there, because the whole thing is portrayed negatively, because we are not able to have a tie up with the mainstream channels, where we can send some good people who can argue and debate and have a discourse, meaningful discourse. Then I think when the journalists and peoples from the minority community, even marginalized community, get the space to fill the vacuum, then I think the pictures may be slowly,
Yeah.
it may be, we may
Yeah.
solve the problem. Because still the media has not get proper representation for the other the majority community, because most of them are just focusing not on real issues like health, education, child and their problems. They are just focusing on different issues which gives the TRP and gets eyeballs for
So
them.
what I hear loud and clear here from you is that there's a lot of fear of parents letting them, and I think
And one fear is also, see, most of the girls are thinking that after their marriage, they are not able to get freedom to get to allow to do their jobs. And somehow this is reality.
Yeah.
One of the parent came that if our girls complete these jobs and do get some job, he may not be, nobody is ready to marry my girl. Right?
Yeah,
I
I
said
think
this is not the
that remains
case.
a
Yeah.
question. That remains a issue with, I think, many communities and most women in India, and maybe. Uh, but this fear that I hear about, and I know, and you mentioned it in the morning, and just now I also mentioned it. So this is something new to people who sort of got out of journalism till before all this trolling and all of this happened. This we got very bad letters to the editor and things like that, and naam kharab hua, thoda, it was like that. But this is another level. This is where police has to be involved, and you're actually threatened, and the whole Suli deals that you spoke about in the morning. To each of you, what, what should be done? I mean, what's the redressal? How do you personally, as professionals, suggest that, how do you deal with it? How does the media need to deal with it? Does the community need to do something? I don't know. I'm just throwing these questions. Yeah.
So, when Bully Bhai happened, I remember I was at that phase where I was like, okay, I've gone through silly deals once and I just don't want to deal with it. I didn't even tweet. I was like, I was, it was just a week before I was heading out for UP for the elections. And I said, I really don't want to engage because I have this series of stories that I need to cover that I promised to my editor. And I just want to
Does
focus.
everybody here know about this? Otherwise, we can just maybe in
Focus
two
on our-
lines,
right.
maybe you can
So a
just
bunch
tell them.
of Muslim women who are vocal, active on social media, journalists, activists, poets, etc., were auctioned online in last year in July.
Auction meaning their pictures were
The
put
pictures
up
were put
and
up.
they were saying ki boli lagao. It was like that. They were
Yeah.
not- yeah.
And then later, it happened a few months later again, like a 2.0 version called Bully Bhai. And so when the second time it happened, I remember just saying, oh no, I really can't deal with this right now because my mental bandwidth, I just did not have any. And I just wanted to focus on my stories. And it so happened that very week, I'd head out for some place in UP, and I was at a village, and this man walks up to me and he says, "Arey aap wo ho na?" And instantly, my immediate reaction was fear. I was like, okay, what if he's one of the men who shared that or saw that or usne boli lagai ho? And my immediate reaction was fear. And later it turned out that he had actually just seen some of my work and he was he'd followed my work and he was an admirer. But that's the issue. I was later telling it to a friend, and that friend said, it's not okay. A Hindu journalist would not have to face that, because if she would be on ground and if she'd be recognized for her work, she'd be happy. Her immediate reaction, instant reaction would be just happiness and joy. But that's not the case with me, and that won't be the case with many other Muslim women, because we are constantly on guard. And I'm saying that because for a lot of people then, and I'm saying, a lot of our liberals even then, I remember vividly, there was this conversation, oh, it's just an online auction. It's not like you're really being sold. It's not like you're really being sold. You're still in your home. And I wanted to underline that there is a very real physical threat that is a very real possibility when things like these happen, when ARFA is either trolled because of her tweets or some things like these happen. There is an actual threat, and that is what, when we're talking about parents and their fears, sure, there's of course orthodoxy and regressiveness and patriarchy, but there's also this very real threat. In fact, there were many young girls who called me that day, and they were like, we don't even tweet too much, and we're just starting off, we just have a few bylines. And their biggest fear wasn't anything else. It was that their parents will see it, and one of them said that my mom is a heart patient and she'll get so terrified. When I had to put it out, my biggest fear was nothing else. It was only my mom, because I was like, oh my God, my mom will get so anxious. So we have to start thinking about those things too. As per your question, coming to your question about what people can do, I'd say that frankly, the responsibility lies squarely on media organizations. I'm saying that as someone who's worked for a while and who's had her fair share of disappointments with media organizations in failing to stand up for their Muslim journalists. I don't know if you remember,
That
like
remains constant then?
on the first day of Ramzan, when a bunch of journalists had gone to Burari in New Delhi to cover this Hindu Mahapanchayat, they were harassed and they were manhandled and they were abused, and they were then taken to the police station. 4 out of 5 of them were Muslim journalists. And one, I wanted to question why a Muslim journalist was sent to cover that. I'm saying that, and this might be controversial, problematic, but I'm saying that there was, of course, I mean, these people have literally for the last year, they have been giving calls for genocide against Muslims, and you're sending a Muslim journalist to cover that. And then many of them, I'll not name them, but they were left high and dry to figure out the police proceedings and everything for themselves. Where were these organizations who encash on that byline? For anyone is being threatened right now because of our work, because we are public people who go and report for these very organizations and bring back stories. And I will say this, I know for a fact that a woman covering a gender story, 1 out of 10 times, this might be wrong, but 9 out of 10, I know she'll do a better job at covering a rape than a man. I just know it. And so I'm saying a Hindu woman will inevitably 9 out of 10 times get a lot of nuances about the hijab ban or things that are currently afflicting the Muslim women wrong. That's just because they don't have that lived experience. That vantage point is missing. Theory can only do so much for you. And that is something that we're just born with because we've had to face. And so I'm saying, when I am bringing you all of that because of that vantage point, because I'm bringing you a certain kind of a story that a Hindu colleague will not be able to.
You owe it to me.
You owe it to me to, you owe it to everyone who you've employed. But this is the least you need to do. You need to have my back unequivocally.
ARFA, would you like to sort of, I am sort of right now, because I am looking at the same question really, mechanisms to like sort of for redressals, making it a little safer, a little bit more, I would say professional actually. I keep coming back to that, but.
So I totally agree with what Fatima is saying, that it is not just notional. It is not just in my mind that I'm making up these stories, that this is just notional. Whenever these issues arise, people say, oh, just block them, just mute them. Or why are you on Twitter at all? Why do you post your pictures? So this is the same mentality where Muslim women in particular, but women in general, I would say, they have to struggle a lot. And if you do not come from connected families, again, with media ownership issues, there will also be all these issues. Who really gets to have this mic? Who really gets to have that pen and paper, and you get the byline in newspaper or get the mic to speak? So women who do not usually come from very connected families, you've not gone to one of these posh elite, Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta colleges, it is very difficult to even get an entry into a newsroom in Delhi or anywhere else. So first of all, they struggle hard to just make it to the newsroom, to just get a small job somewhere. And then finally, when a woman especially Muslim women, other religious minorities, women coming from other religious minorities, they make it to a certain point where you have a voice, and that matters, that has an influence. So what they try to do, yeah, so what they try to do is that since people like me will have a large following, so which means my work has a resonance with people, they are watching me, listening to me, I'm influencing them, their viewpoints. When they say, when they target me, not as a journalist, but as a Muslim woman, what they're trying to do effectively is they're trying to reduce the impact and reach of my work.
Absolutely.
ये कोई जर्नलिस्ट वर्नलिस्ट नहीं है, सिर्फ मुसलमान है, इसको सिर्फ मुसलमान की तरह देखो, because if you think of me as a professional journalist, आपको मेरे काम को legitimacy और वो seriousness देनी पड़ेगी. But if you just kind of आप मेरे कद को इतना छोटा कर दें कि कुछ नहीं है, सिर्फ मुसलमान है.
तो ड्रेस इसका क्या?
Yeah. So then every day I'm not saying I have a choice. What is my coping mechanism is that every day I will have a choice in the morning whether I want to make this about my trolls or about my journalism. There are people who make it about trolls. I'm not saying they're wrong, but maybe it is their coping mechanism. What I try to do is that in effect, I try to make my work more impactful, try to speak on the issues of the more marginalized people, and try to hit them where it hurts them the most. Every day I have a choice, but honestly, whenever I think that I've been able to develop a thick skin and I can take it, they go further down, hit me more. And you're asking about trolling and this social media pressure and everything. I would say this is very 2019. Right now, what people like me are dealing with is not trolls. I'm not at all bothered about trolls. I am not at all bothered about what people are saying about me on social media, or they're trending my name almost every alternate days. I am just a news show or a tweet away from going to jail. That is where I am.
That is so scary.
So this is not about being trolled at all. I really do not care.
Will you
I am just
a
thinking,
little bit explain for people who are not into it why you are saying that?
Yeah, so for anything and everything you say, they will say, oh, you are trying to incite people. You are a threat to national security. You are trying to disturb, peace. And for any of this, if this is not enough, then it would be defamation. It would
We've
be
seen
anything
Rana Ayub's case.
On a small pretext. That's what I'm saying.
It'll be a tax rate, it'll be a something.
So some people would want to maybe highlight the cases on them. There are others who would want to highlight the work they do. So of course, for some people, this may be their coping mechanism. For me, I don't know how much can I really ignore, but there is a defamation case on me worth $1 million Indian rupees.
What is it?
That's been going on because I interviewed this guy called Shri Ravi Shankar in 2018, and he did not like my question because this was the first time he was meeting a journalist.
That Guruji.
So Guruji's team or his followers, they decided to file a case on me. I've hardly talked about this because again, it's an option, if it at all. That should I talk about Shri and this case on me, or continue to do the work that I do every day. And really, when there are a lot of people who look up to me as a source of inspiration and courage, then I don't know. I should not.
A very alone battle. I mean, surely
it's a lonely battle.
It's surely there's some system somewhere in. Is there any sight of a system in place? I mean, it can't be. It can't just be lone battles like this, no? Because
well, the type of people, the people that we should ideally be appealing to. The trolling and attacks benefit those people, and if not coming from those people, there are people who are office bearers of the Bharatiya Janata Party who troll me, tag police in my tweets, and just trying to get people like me in jail. So you are saying that I should be appealing to the oppressors for my oppression? I'm not sure.
No, but within the media.
So I am maybe one of those lucky people that my organizations always they stand with me, for me. But again, it's a small media house. Everybody is vulnerable. My editors, founding editors, they have various cases on them. Almost on a weekly basis, they are visiting police stations. Yeah. They may not talk about this, but they are doing that. Yeah. And a substantial amount of money and resources and human resource that goes into fighting the legal cases.
And it is, I mean, there's something to be said about the fact that we don't have any leading national daily or any leading, we don't have representatives from there, because I don't think they would be allowed to come here and speak, and they wouldn't feel free. So it is a lonely battle, either at an individual level or at the, it's their strong. Would you want to add something to that, Ghazal?
And just little bit, last few sentences that I wanted to add. So I feel, one of the things I feel at these are not the times for individual heroism. These are the times for collectives. And that is why I decided to remain with this organization, where I have like-minded people who have my back. I have theirs. And I do feel that since the oppressor and the source of this discrimination comes from the most powerful people in this country, then instead of individual heroism and martyrdom, this is the time
I understand
for
where you're
collectives.
going. Yeah, but
Yes.
I think in that you have a different and like you also said, you'd written that thing about the hijab controversy, which was a little different from. And there's a lot of I get what you're saying, because it often then becomes about the woman who is in that case that
instead
is,
of the people who are being historians.
So actually, frankly, I don't even remember the news story or anything. I just remember that
Person.
rage,
Right.
that person, that Washington Post thing. Yeah, you're right. And those are the wrong triggers to get. You wanted to add something, and then I'll sort of wind up by asking some.
Actually, I not to this, but to your original question about how do we increase the representation of women issues in the mainline media. So to that, I wanted to say that maybe there is a need for some sort of a structural change in the format of newscasting. What we see now in the mainline news channels and also newspapers is reduction in reportage. Uh, in the news channels, you have studio discussions most of the time, in fact all the time, because it's cheaper to do that and it's less cumbersome, less stressful. So when you're having a discussion, then obviously you're following a direction or a directive. You're not really covering the issues which matter. So maybe there is a need to do something like that. Or in online media, maybe the independent media, if you have a dedicated section, maybe on a weekly basis or a fortnightly basis, only on gender issues, then you would be forced to produce different stories, and not necessarily on Muslim women, but women per se, because a lot of problems that women in India or Muslim women in India face are universal. All women face.
I
those
didn't want to
issues.
interject, but I really want to ask: Is there a consumption issue? Why aren't these things? These seem so. I mean, these seem like no-brainers. Why don't these things happen?
I think, how do we know if there's a consumption issue if there is no supply? If you have a structured format, if you have a weekly for an hour-long program on something pertaining to women, and there are no takers for it, there's no advertising for it, or your TRPs don't match, then only then you can judge whether this has a market or not.
No, Ghazala, I think where I agree with Arfa is, I think why that also has so much traction is because of the whole algorithm and echo chamber thing. See, I get your stuff because I'm me.
Yeah.
I don't watch Arnab because I'm not that. So maybe I'm just thinking, maybe the mainstream media, there are consumption issues about this, because the kind of people who want to read you are reading you. The issue now is how to get to,
No,
yeah.
I agree. So maybe the echo chamber is one part of it. Even Arnab, for all his faults, he can also he need not anchor it. There's no need to anchor it. They can have a reportage based an hour-long program once a week or once a fortnight. The advertising or the consumption is not the point here. The point is the commitment to do it, the desire to do it. If you're not committed to
I
a
think you're
particular
harking
issue,
back to the whole issue that journalism really has to be more than, it has to be a public good. I mean, you cannot leave it to issues of demand and supply.
No,
there has to be something else.
so that is why
Yeah.
it was called the fourth estate. I mean,
Yes,
this is a public service
Yes.
profession.
Yes. Yes, please. So actually, let me start, since aap bol hi rahe hain, all the questions that are coming, obviously, I mean, I think because there are journalists and good journalists at that here on this panel, and I think people are very convinced that the issues have been very feelingly sort of conveyed. So all the questions that I'm getting are about resolution. So placement कितनी हुई है, हम डबल मार्जिनलाइजेशन हो रहा है, इसका क्या किया जाए? The questions that I've also triple कैसे? हाँ, triple हो गया. Poor. You know, it's very interesting that you say that, Arfa, because quite different from this in my world of academics. I have been studying financial inclusion and gender, and वो करते somehow it led me to Muslim women. And after this is very survey based and huge sample surveys and things like that, and then finally जब qualitative rounds होने लगी तो actually one thing that again and again came up is that बाकी सब problem छोड़िए, अभी इतना polarization है. This was in UP, इतना polar, घर से बाहर कौन निकलने देगा औरतों को? पहले तो पैसे ही नहीं है, बैंक की जरूरत क्या है, फिर भी औरतों के बैंक अकाउंट की जरूरत क्या है, फिर बाहर जाना इस माहौल में. So I suppose those are the stories we want told. Those stories that a Muslim woman finds it even more difficult than an ordinary woman who anyway finds it difficult to go to the bank.
That's correct. And
Those
let me
are
just add
difficult stories to tell.
Let me just add a personal story to it, because since personal is professional, professional is personal.
Yes, everything is.
I mean, it was 1992, December 1992, demolition of Babri Masjid, right? I used to live in a small town called Khurja. It's in Bulandshahr district. There was just one school where they taught science. Khurja. Khurja is the pottery city. The pottery city, yeah. My beautiful pottery city, which was destroyed by these majoritarian thugs. Anyway, so it was 1992. I was in school, and there was only one government school that taught science, and that was in the Hindu majority area. Trust me, the same choice, whether, not choice, I'm saying same compulsion, whether you want your girls to be safe or you want your girls to be educated.
Yes.
There used to be more than a dozen Muslim girls in my class. At the end of the session, there were hardly two.
My God.
And finally, only one girl who was able to appear for the board exams. And this was not just 1992, this was 94, because things don't improve overnight. Even 30 years down the line, it is a divided town. 30 years down the line, there are complete demarcation between Hindu areas and Muslim areas. By 1994, when I passed 10th exams, I was the only Muslim girl to have appeared for the exam and passed. And I know my father took considerable risk to my life and the safety of his family, that people could have accused him later that he compromised if something, could have happened to me. So that's the kind of choice that I'm talking about.
Yeah, it continues to be difficult, and one wonders.
And whenever I think about all those 11 young girls who could never make it to class 10th and 12th, could never go to college, could never really have a life and a career for themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, the problem lies with after 90s, when the journalists have become divided in left, right, and middle. And after in 1992, the first incident when journalists were attacked in large numbers during Babri Masjid demolition. And after that, the things have been deteriorated in such a way that each journalist has been categorized from their views and ideologies. And this is a very, very dangerous trend where journalists are marked with some ideology. And the dilemma is this, that in present situation, most of the journalists who are even left or right or center, they have lost their credibility. The situation is this, the society is not looking forward anyone from that objectivity and that the journalist holds prior to 90s, who are coming in this profession, because there are so many ugly faces which we are seeing regularly on media, that most of us have lost that conception, that its integrity and credibility. Then first we have to we have to achieve that again, the credibility aspect, whether it is print or electronic. But that fearless journalism requires a lot of pain, and the younger generation needs to come who wanted to really worth to contribute the society, not for this passion for glamour, for money. Most of the people are coming for this profession to earn money. Even in actuality, there is no money now left, because so many media houses are not giving that much of money to even survive. Once Mr. Kamal Khan has come, and he said that even not girls, when the boys, somebody looks forward for a bride, then the peoples are not willing to take journalists as their their brides. So this is the fact, because they think that journalists are not good people in the society. They are working like this and this. They have a lot of, because what we see, it reflects, and the peoples are not giving that much of honor which earlier peoples, the journalists have. And because it is not the girls only that they are fearing to come into this profession. Even boys families are getting a good relation for their getting difficulty. But still, the particularly for, because Urdu population is having different problems which is faced by presently, it still needs a strong Urdu media, which still we have not able to establish. In terms of good number of journalists like ARFA, we need at least 10 journalists if we produced in a year. I think the many of the problems of this wrong portrayal of Muslim women and Muslim issues may be solved, because one Kamal Khan is enough for solving so many problems, and one Ravish Kumar is uh, uh, daring enough to challenge all the people, all the society, and the people who are involved in this ugly face of polarization. Then we need such people to come in this noble profession, and again to gain this, that the credibility that we have lost. And I think Urdu journalism in the coming days requires much more contribution from the Urdu speaking community, because see, Urdu community is not belonging to a region, because Urdu speaking population is spread in different pockets. Then it has, the challenges is more, because some Bengali Muslims, their problem is different, some Gujarati, Marathi, like that.
Yes.
But if you have specific regions, then the problem may be identified and can be solved. But the Urdu, for Urdu, it is a more than that.
Yeah.
And it is still that Urdu media, whether it is digital, whether it is electronic, or whether it is print, they have to look into these challenges very seriously. And being our department, which is only one department which is producing UG and PG course and PhD also, we have also a lot of responsibility towards society, that those students who are passed out from the department, even going to regional media or mainstream media or vernacular media, they should serve the society, not only the community or some specific community. The language they serve, but they should they should be
Ji.
quality product.
Ji.
Our focus is on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and let it not be said we didn't let a man have the last word. And really, it's a privilege to share the panel with women of substance like you guys. Cool. Really, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody on the panel. It was an engaging discussion. The next panel we have is on entrepreneurial challenges, solutions from Suchnapreneurs. So, Mr. Osama Manzar will be the moderator of this session. We have 11 Suchnapreneurs with her who are social entrepreneurs. And I request Mr. Osama Manzar to please come and take over.